You ever have one of those moments where you think, okay, surely it can't get any more absurd than this? And then life just doubles down? Yeah, that was me, standing in the middle of my family's farm, gripping a fence post like it was the last piece of sanity I had, wondering if I'd somehow slipped into a parallel universe where common sense packed up and left. You want a story about entitlement? Settle in. I've been living on my family's old farm for 8 years now. Inherited it from my granddad when he passed. The place has history soaked into it. Built in 1824. 50 acres of stubborn soil, rusted tractors that haven't moved in decades, barns with peeling paint and sagging beams. The whole picture. It used to be so far out in the country, even the raccoons looked confused trying to find it. Then about 3 years ago, everything shifted. I blinked, and suddenly there's a polished, luxury housing development pressed right up against my property line. Rows of houses that look like they were duplicated from the same Pinterest board. Perfect lawns, perfect shutters. HOA rules about mailbox height and approved shades of beige. You know exactly the type. My farm? It's got personality. Let's call it that. It's not the kind of place where you expect spotless shoes or a porch free of mud. And my roosters? They're loud, impressively loud, especially at sunrise. If you ever want front row seats to an HOA meltdown, just let a rooster crow at 5:30 a.m. It's better than cable. Now, let me introduce the antagonist of this little drama, the HOA president. Imagine someone who treats the neighborhood like it's her personal empire. She drives a white SUV so spotless it probably squeaks when it turns. The first time we met, she marched up to my front door with a clipboard clutched like a weapon, looked me straight in the eye, and declared, "Your roosters are disturbing the peace. You need to get rid of them." Like she was offering helpful advice. I smiled, real polite, and explained that this farm existed long before a manicured subdivision was even a sketch on a blueprint. I had every legal right to keep livestock. Period. She did not appreciate that. She started talking about being inconsiderate to the neighbors. I told her, "Ma'am, technically you're my neighbor. I was here first." For a second, I thought she might actually combust on my porch. But that didn't slow her down. Over the next year and a half, she kept popping up. Complaints about the smell when I fertilized, noise from equipment, dust, chickens, you name it, every time. I calmly explained the regulations, smiled, and sent her back to her kingdom. What I didn't realize was what she was cooking up behind the scenes. Turns out she'd been telling the new residents that my farm was phase 2 of their development. I'm not kidding. She convinced them the developers were planning to buy my land and transform it into community gardens, dog parks, bocce ball courts, whatever sounded charming at the time. Suddenly, neighbors started waving at me like we were partners in some grand project, chatting about how excited they were for upcoming historic community events. I figured they were just being friendly. They weren't. I found out by accident one afternoon while I was fixing a fence post near the property line. A nice older gentleman new to the neighborhood wandered over with his dog and said, "Can't wait for community events here." I blinked at him. "What events?" He looked completely puzzled and launched into a whole explanation about the plans the HOA president had been promoting. Now I was interested. I joined their neighborhood social media group just to keep an eye on things. Sure enough, there were posts about upcoming gatherings at the historic grounds. My farm, like it already belonged to them. And then came the grand finale. Tuesday morning, late June. I'm out by the fence again, minding my own business. The HOA president pulls up, but doesn't even bother getting out of her SUV. She just rolls down her window and shouts across the property line. The HOA's annual summer gala will be held on your property this Saturday. Not a request, a declaration. We've hired caterers, tents, 125 guests. We'll be setting up in your back meadow. You know, the nicest part of my land. The same stretch she'd once called a weed patch. She tells me to have it ready by noon and drives off before I can respond. I'm left standing there, still holding that fence post, replaying the conversation in my head like maybe I misheard her. I didn't. She meant every word. That evening, I checked their social page. There it is. Exclusive summer gala. Hampton chic dress code. 125 guests confirmed. Then I see the line that makes my jaw hit the dirt. Exclusive access to the community's historic agricultural space. My land. And just to make it perfect, I find out she's charging $50 per ticket for a party on property she doesn't own. Site fees, catering packages, the whole setup. I had agreed to exactly none of it. Now, you might think this is the moment I call the sheriff and shut it down immediately. But I'll be honest, I was curious. How far was she willing to push this fantasy? So I started small. Sent a polite email to the HOA board. Just a few innocent questions about liability insurance for events on private property. You know, in case someone got hurt. 2 hours later, she responded herself. Don't be difficult. The event is happening whether you like it or not. And please ensure the manure smell is gone before Saturday. That was the moment something clicked. If she wanted an authentic farm venue, I was more than happy to provide the full experience. I did my homework. County regulations say if you're hosting an event with over 100 people, you need permits, insurance, fire marshal approval, health department sign-offs. So I started making phone calls. The sheriff's office was very clear. If someone hosts a commercial event on your property without permission, that's trespassing. And if money's involved, possibly theft of services. And that's when things started getting interesting. Hands. The fire marshal tells me flat out, if there's an event out there, we'll be conducting an inspection. Perfect. Friday night, I start getting ready. My granddad used to say the best way to deal with folks who forget where they are is simple. Remind them. So I roll my trusty old manure spreader right up beside the meadow. That machine is the definition of authentic. I park it nice and visible. Then I position the irrigation pump nearby. When that thing runs, it doesn't hum, it roars. And the pond water? Let's just say it carries a distinct personality. I adjust the sprinklers carefully, angling them so the afternoon breeze would do the heavy lifting during their elegant little gala. Saturday shows up with postcard weather. Clear blue sky, steady western breeze, temperature just about perfect for a picnic. Or, depending on how you look at it, perfect for a little lesson. Around noon, the guests start arriving. White linen outfits, designer sunglasses, shoes that probably cost more than my old tractor. They stride straight onto my property like it's already deeded in their names. The HOA president leads them in like royalty inspecting her kingdom. From my kitchen window, I watch it all unfold. Fancy tents going up, round tables dressed in crisp cloth, a portable stage assembled front and center, catering staff hustling back and forth, everyone wearing that polished smile, like they're about to be featured in a lifestyle magazine spread. By 12:30, the place is packed. At exactly 1 o'clock, it's time. I head the barn and fire up the irrigation pump. That old engine erupts like a freight train tearing through the countryside. A second later, the sprinklers kick on. Within minutes, a fine mist of pond water begins drifting lazily across the meadow, carried perfectly by that helpful afternoon breeze. You could actually watch the moment it hit them. Fans start waving. Hands go to noses. Conversations falter mid-sentence. Eyes dart toward the HOA president, who's frantically trying to maintain composure as the scent of historic agricultural space settles over her upscale soiree. And just as she steps onto the stage to begin whatever speech she had prepared, sirens, real ones, a sheriff's cruiser, and the fire marshal's truck roll up lights flashing straight toward the meadow. I've never seen designer loafers move that fast. I stroll out from the barn, paperwork tucked under my arm, and meet the officers halfway. The deputy recognizes me immediately. The fire marshal is all business. He addresses the crowd clearly. This event is shut down. No permit, no insurance, no property owner authorization. Everyone needs to leave. The HOA president tries to recover. She insists she has my permission, even points at me like I'm part of her script. I step forward calmly and hand the deputy the deed, the email chain, screenshots of her promotional posts, ticket listings, everything neatly organized. The deputy flips through the pages and looks at her. Do you have written permission from the property owner? She hesitates. Well, it's community property. I don't say a word. I just look at her. The deputy asks the next question. Did you charge people for this event? A few guests answer for her. Yeah, $50 each. He raises an eyebrow. Where are the site agreements? Payment records? Catering contracts tied to property owner? She starts fumbling over her words. I present my own documentation. No agreement, no payment, no authorization. None of this legitimate. That's when the citations start coming out. The catering manager corners her demanding payment. The tent company joins in. Same story. Guests grumble as they gather purses and fold chairs. A few wander over to me and apologize. They genuinely believe the farm was about to become their new park. I tell them the truth. Not your fault. Just maybe ask next time before planning a party on someone else's land. By mid-afternoon, the meadow is nearly empty. Cleanup crews dismantle tents. A handful of HOA board members argue in tight circles, and the president sits in her spotless SUV, phone pressed her ear, staring straight ahead like her empire just collapsed. The deputy hands me the incident report and mentions additional charges could follow. The fire marshal issues a formal citation for hosting an unpermitted event, with a hearing scheduled in the coming days. Their social media group? Absolute chaos. Residents demand refunds. They want explanations. The president tries to shift the blame onto me, but the emails and public posts don't lie. By the end of the week, she resigns. The new HOA board president sends me a formal letter, written apology, full acknowledgement that they have zero claim to my land, and a promise that no one will interfere with my farm again. But here's the part that really makes it satisfying. The county charges the former president for organizing an illegal event and false advertising. The fines stack up fast. The catering company sues. The tent rental company sues. Several residents take her to civil court for the ticket money she collected for something she had no right to offer. The judge sides with them, orders her to refund every ticket plus damages. The county also instructs her to compensate me for unauthorized use of my property, what she'd advertised as a site fee. By the time it's all said and done, she owes thousands. As for me, I take a portion of that money and buy a new rooster. Not just any rooster, a breed known for volume. This bird doesn't crow. He announces, every morning at 4:30 sharp. He lets the entire horizon know he's alive. And I sit on my porch with a cup of coffee, smiling quietly, knowing the former HOA president hears him loud and clear from her house at the edge of that subdivision. The funny thing is, the new HOA board actually tries to be decent. We work out small agreements about fence maintenance. I schedule my loudest work during reasonable hours. Basic mutual respect. Now, whenever a new neighbor moves in and asks about the farm, they get the full explanation. Historic, private, loud roosters included. These days, when I water the meadow and the breeze carries a familiar pond aroma across the fence, people just shrug. Well, they say, that's life next to a real farm. My rooster's still going strong. Loud, proud, exactly where he belongs. If there's one thing I learned the hard way, it's this. Never assume you can claim what isn't yours just because you think you're entitled to it. And when someone tells you their land is off limits, believe them. Otherwise, you might find yourself listening to a rooster at sunrise, realizing you lost a fight before it even started. So let me ask you, where do you think the line falls between community and entitlement? Ever watch someone finally face the consequences of trying to rewrite the rules? Or maybe you stood your ground defending what was yours. Drop your stories. I'd love to hear how you handled it. Because sometimes justice doesn't bang a gavel. Sometimes it crows at dawn.